So I wanted to get on here and do a video on an heirloom that I really love called Perpetual Spinach. I'm a fan of heirloom seeds, period, but there are certain varieties that just really shine in my garden. If you have not grown it yet, I hope that this video convinces you to grow it because it's great. I love it. It tastes more like a spinach than a chard. It doesn't have the thick stems that chard has, and it doesn't have like the tough texture on the leaves as much. And that's especially true if you grow the perpetual spinach like a cut and come again, or where you're harvesting the leaves really young. They taste a lot like spinach, and you can use it in recipes just like spinach. And so you might think to yourself, like, why would you, if you can have spinach, why would you grow perpetual spinach or spinach, the chard that tastes like spinach? And the reason is that it's tough as nails. It's tough as nails. Let's talk about the heat. Okay, so it does not bolt. I had a plant in there from spring all the way through fall. It's technically a chard, even though it tastes like a spinach, so it has heat tolerance. And what I mean by bolting, if you're not familiar with the term bolting, that's when a plant goes from growing mode where they're growing what you want it to grow, whether it be a fruit or a leaf or something like that, and it goes, or a root crop, and it's growing like a carrot. And instead of focusing its energy on producing what you want it to produce, it then starts to transition into reproduction mode, and it puts out usually like a big long stem or something with a bunch of seed heads on top. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially with heirlooms, and I'll talk about that in another video. Some people specifically let some go to seed and go and bolt because they want the seed so that they can save the seed for next year. But if you're wanting to eat it now, when something bolts, the problem is it usually changes the flavor of the vegetable that you're trying to grow. So with spinach, for example, spinach, it tastes great, it's very tender, but the problem with spinach is that you grow it early season, and as soon as it starts to heat up, there's always a possibility that your spinach is going to bolt, and the flavor of the leaves at that point is going to change. Now you can sort of pinch off the stems that come popping up with the seed heads, and you can kind of delay it, but really eventually it's going to change the flavor of your spinach, and it's not really going to taste this. It's going to have a more bitter taste than it really should. So you don't want things to always bolt unless you're collecting seed savings. So that's the heat. It doesn't bolt like spinach does. You can grow it all the way through the summer, all the way into fall, which brings me to my next point, the cold. So it's super cold tolerant, like really cold tolerant. Once it's established, it's pretty hard to kill, and we'll talk about other low maintenance like considerations for this plant. But just as far as the cold, I mean, here it's January and it's going strong, and I will insert some footage. I have a vegepod, which I have other videos on my channel about. It's basically a raised bed on legs with a row cover, and you can buy an optional winter cover. So I have heard of people, even though I'm growing mine in a winter cover, there's different things that you can do to extend your season other than like a fancy like row cover or a greenhouse. So, but you don't necessarily have to do that with this plant, and that's the beauty of it, is it lasts you like all season, and you don't have to worry about it for that reason. And also because, I mean, they're just low maintenance, period. So from sowing them is easy. Some plants are really finicky about when you sow them and how you sow them and what you have to do to get them to germinate from the seed so you see the little leaves popping out of the ground. Some are really finicky. This is not one of them. Well, first of all, the seeds are not teeny. They're pretty good size. And so you put them in the ground and it's like, boom. I never have an issue with germination. I mean, I bought mine from Baker Creek, and I usually have pretty luck with Baker Creek, but these are particularly impressive with their germination rate. And you know, when you don't have to worry about how something is direct sown, it's just easier on you, because otherwise you know, if a seed is finicky, you might have to like pre-treat it with the cold or grow it indoors first and then harden it off. And when I say harden off, the phrase harden off means, so if you want to start your plants indoors, or you have to start your plant indoors, that's fine. But the problem is when you grow a plant inside, it's used to like your cozy weather inside your house with minimal wind, minimal shifts in temperature. You know, you water it as needed and there's no like big storms or anything like that. And so if you were to take up a little start of a spinach plant or something like that from cozy inside to immediately take it outside and leave it outside all day, you could lose that plant because you need to transition it and get it used to the weather outside little by little. So if you don't do things to harden them off to outside, you could lose the plant. But that means extra maintenance, like, you know, growing it inside and then taking it outside for 1 hour and then bringing it back in. And then the next day, 2 hours, and then bringing it back in. And then next day, 4 hours, and you know, so it's a lot more maintenance. So I really appreciate seeds and plants that I can just like go outside, stick in the ground, and they will grow with as little maintenance as possible. And then once they get established, they're also very low maintenance. I had a few pests in my garden last season and nothing bothered my perpetual spinach, nothing. I will say that the first time that I tried them, I basically did not follow the spacing instructions that came with the little packet. I didn't thin them out the way that I was supposed to, and I thought that I could use them as a cut and come again, and they are cut and come again, but in a different way, and I'll explain, where you just have a bunch of them bunched together and you just cut them and then, you know, wait till the flush to grow back and you can cut them back again and keep doing that over and over again. For me, growing them under the little hoop house situation that I have going with the vegepod, that it retains a lot of moisture, I think it didn't have enough ventilation in there and they didn't do too well after some time in that environment. Once I spaced them out and I just ripped them all out and I tried again and they germinated just fine. And I spaced them out a lot further and they did beautifully once I did that. And so instead of having a bunch of like little plants very close together, I did them spaced out a little bit further and let them grow a little bit bigger before I harvest them. And those are the plants that are still here in the middle of January in New Jersey in the winter. So if you haven't tried perpetual spinach, please do so. You will thank me later.